الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله، أشهد أن عليًا وفاطمة الزهراء وأبناهما المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. पढ़ता हूँ 3 रकात नमाज मगरिब बा जमात वाजिब क़ुर्बतन इलल्लाह। अल्लाहु अकबर। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन अर्रहमानिर रहीम मालिकि यौमिद्दीन इय्याका नअबुदु व इय्याका नस्तईन इहदिनास सिरातल मुस्तकीम صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله تسبيحة فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلوات. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليًا وفاطمة الزهراء وأبناءهما المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة.
قربة إلى الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. تسبيحة الزهراء عليه السلام. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض أم في سماء، أم في بر أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من، وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله، واجعل يا رب رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، ومأخذه قريبا، ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم. الله.
Brothers, if you finish praying, could you please move towards the front of the hall? We need to adjust a few of the carpets and to make the hall ready for the start of the Majlis. So please move to the front. Salawat. Qibla? Salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر الأهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم جميعا أهل البيت ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات. Respected brothers and sisters, elders, scholars, those in Islam and those in humanity, may peace and blessings be upon you all. On behalf of the organizers of this Majlis, my condolences to you on the tragedy of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Thank you for your attendance at this Majlis, and thank you for becoming a part of this journey with us. As is tradition, we will open this Majlis with a few verses from the glorious book, with a recitation of the Holy Quran. I would like to welcome Sayyid Hassan to open the Majlis, to come forward and enlighten this evening with the recitation of a few verses from the Holy Book. Please welcome him with the loudest of your voices with a salawat.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى صدق الله العلي العظيم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you, Sayyid Hassan, for that extremely beautiful and poignant recitation of the verses of Surah Al-Kahf. Indeed, the very verses that Imam Hussain himself was reciting when his head was aloft a spear. Very timely reminder. Thank you. Thank the Sayyid by reciting a loud salawat. I have a number of announcements to make, and also Brother Khamis also needs to read, and we're running a bit late today, so just please bear with us. Okay, thank you. Salawat. Could you kindly welcome Brother Khamis to come forward and recite the Marsiya and the lamentation for Imam Hussain tonight? Please welcome him with the loud, warmest of your salawats.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ali.
करबला से जो मेरी संत हवाएं आईं, करबला से जो मेरी सिमत हवाएं आईं, देर तक गिरी मातम की सदाएं आईं, करबला से जो मेरी सिमत हवाएं फूल महके जो बहारों में तो सोचा मैंने फूल महके जो बहारों में तो सोचा मैंने किन शहीदों के लिए सुर्ख कबाएं आईं, करबला से मुस्कुराते हुए तारों ने झुका ली आँखें, मुस्कुराते हुए तारों ने झुका ली आँखें,
याद जब भी अली असग़र की अदाएं आईं, करबला से जो आसमानों से जो टकराई है फरियाद रबा, टकराई है फरियाद रबा। कब्र असग़र पे बरसने को घटाएं करबला से जो मेरी संत हवाएं आईं, देर तक गिरी आओ मातम की सदाएं आईं करबला से।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला।
Thank you, Brother Khamis, for that beautiful recitation. Please thank him by reciting a loud salawat. A few housekeeping things and announcements. So, as I said yesterday, these events are only made possible through your generous contributions, and it's costing us in the region of £35,000 to host this series of programs. So that works out to be about £3,500 per night. You can support this program in a number of different ways. You can sponsor the tabarruk, or you can sponsor the majlis, or you can ask the names of your marhumeen to be put on the PowerPoint for the Ziyarat Ashura for a cost of, not cost, donation I should say, of £25. But whatever it is that you can give, it will be, accepted in the way of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. I've heard a number of scholars say that when you give in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, don't just give loose change. Make sure it pinches your pocket. So, I'll leave that thought with you. Tonight's tabarruk has been sponsored by Brother Salman and his family, and he's requested a Fatiha for a number of his marhumeen. His father, Sheikh Saeedul Hassan, Naseem Akhtar Hassan, Sheikh Nawazish Ali, Sheikh Shamsul Hassan, Sheikh Ijaz Hussain, and Asim Hassan. So please can we put our hands together and recite a Fatiha for these marhumeen, as well as all the marhumeen of the community who have lost their lives during this COVID period, and we may perhaps not have been able to go to their houses for condolences, etc. So, Al-Fatiha. Salawat. An announcement on behalf of the the Jafriya Islamic Center, the 404, regarding the Manchester annual Ashura Jalus. Please note that the Manchester Jalus, organized by the Jafriya Islamic Center 404, will be on Sunday, the 15th of August, and it will begin in Platfields Park, Platt Lane, and all Mu'mineen and Mu'minat are requested to attend. And I believe it's after Zuhr prayers. I think that's correct. Wherever Brother Saif is. Yes. Yes, Zuhr prayers in Platfields Park, and then a Majlis, and then the procession begins from there on the 15th of August, Sunday. So that's the announcement for the Jalus. There's a request that can we fill the gaps as much as possible. We're told that a lot of people are coming, so just if you step up and just move forwards with a salawat. Brother Faiz has reminded me that there is a crash facility on offer, in fact, for 2 crash facilities on offer, one for children under 3 and one for the other kids. So if you've got little kids and they're getting irritable or something, please avail those facilities. There is a live feed there as well, so you will be able to listen to the Majlis, so you won't miss on anything. So thank you very much for that. A request from Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hilli. Sheikh Hilli has generously donated, produced this Muharram journal. This Muharram journal is available free of charge at the bookstall and at the reception area. And in this, there's a number of nice stories and reflections for the children as well as for the adults. So you can use the journal, prepare your notes as you're listening to the Majlis, and it's free of charge. You can pick it up at the stalls. There's only, I think, 90 or so copies available, so I guess it's first come, first served. Salawat. Another request is that the 10th day, they're an active community organization. If people want to volunteer in any way, then they can step forward and speak to the brothers and sisters who are there at the 10th day stall. Just to showcase some of their work, I think Sister Batul, I can't see her, she did mention that there is a short video that she has prepared that she wishes to show us. Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll do that another night. And on another evening, salawat. Yesterday on the 2nd of Muharram, we left Imam Hussain alayhi salam having arrived in Karbala. Today it is the 3rd of Muharram. The caravan of Imam Hussain alayhi salam has divided the night between worship and rest, and they are preparing for what is to come, readying themselves and their families mentally and psychologically. And Imam al-Hussein, in this instance, dispatches a letter to his brother Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya in Hijaz, and it contains his final will and testament. He writes to his brother Muhammad, "It is as if this life has never been, and as if the hereafter has always been, and may peace be with you." He makes a general announcement. He wants to purchase the land they are camped on, and the news of his intentions spreads like wildfire. Word reaches a branch of the Bani Asad, the people of the lion, living near this wilderness. They line up outside his camp to sell. He smiles at them as they collect the money. This world, this world, this world that hath my father divorced. So now Hussein divorces it with a smile. Imam al-Hussein purchases Karbala, 4 square miles of the desert, with a princely sum of 60,000 gold dirhams in the name of his son Ali al-Akbar. His sister Zainab, according to traditions, contributes half of this amount. She is an equal partner in his ventures. Al-Hussein has foresight. He's seeing through time, millennia into the future. And even in his death and through his blood, he is giving life to a barren and sterile land. He's leaving a gift to this world. And here, a city is born. Salawat. To expand on the story of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, we have with us Sayyid Mahdi Modarresi, and without further ado, please welcome the Sayyid with the loudest of your voices with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم هب لنا رأفته ورحمته وعونه ودعاءه وخيره ورضاه ما ننال به سعة من رحمتك وفوزا عندك يا كريم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. On this eve of Friday, a special salam to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein all together at once. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أبي الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the hastening of the reappearance of the Master, the Savior, the Avenger, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To receive the intercession of the mother of Imam Hussain, Fatima al-Zahra, on the day of judgment, recite another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To be raised in paradise in the company of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein and his family and companions, and even louder third salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the places where prayers are answered, where the gateways of heaven are opened, where God hears us, is these gatherings held to commemorate the tragedy of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The Majlis of Hussein are among what we call madanul ijabah. It's those places where your heart breaks, where your tears roll down your cheek, where your love for the vicegerents of God, for the family of Rasulullah, for the ones whose love is mandated in the literal text of the Quran. That love is real, and it's authentic, and it's genuine. And you could see it, you could feel it. There's an outpour of emotion. This happens in these gatherings, which is what makes them so special. And it's because of that, that in these gatherings, and on such a holy and special night, it's important that we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this year, which began just a couple of days ago, the year of the reappearance of the Master. May this be the time when God's promise is fulfilled. May this be the year where the prophecies of God's messengers and apostles finally comes to fruition, inshallah. It's important that we make this dua for the sake of the Savior himself, to pray for him, not just that he comes back and helps us or anything like that, but just for him to find relief, for the family of Rasulullah to finally, for the first time ever, find some peace. because this nation betrayed Rasulullah and his family. It's like they say, I'm sure you've heard this before, and it's not just this statement. This is the truth. And I challenge anyone to show me otherwise. Had the Prophet said, I want you to oppress my family, wallahi, they couldn't have done a better job. Had the Prophet advised his nation to go hunt down his children and his progeny and slaughter them one after the other, they couldn't have done it any worse than they did. The family of Rasulullah, every last single one of them, the Imams of the ahlebait, these were, by the admission of their enemies, their foes, by the admission of their contemporaries, the admission of the leaders of other schools of thought, they were always the best of the best. Every single one of them, there are testimonies from ulama of other denominations as well as the ruling elite that would speak of the merits and virtues of every single one of these imams. فَمَا كَانَ أَحَدٌ أَفْضَلَ مِنْهُ فِي عِبَادَتِهِ وَلَا عِلْمِهِ. You'll find this statement being reiterated over and over again about each member of the Ahlul Bayt, and yet every single one of them was killed. This nation betrayed the Holy Prophet. This nation failed to compensate the Prophet for his hard work and toil. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. And yet this is how they repay Rasulullah. Only 50 years after the passing of the Holy Prophet, Karbala, the single greatest calamity in all of human history, took place. Within half a century. Is this قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى? Is this how you repay Rasulullah? Or perhaps it is by threatening to burn down the house of the daughter of Rasulullah within days of his death. Or perhaps it's by fighting Ali ibn Abi Talib, the brother of Rasulullah, the one the Prophet kept for himself when people were paired up, all of the companions. Ahmad ibn Hanbal says this in his Musnad. Look at these ahadith. He paired people up, this one with that one, this one with that one. Amir al-Mu'mineen was the last person. And so he came to the Holy Prophet. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, look at the language, look at the relationship. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, if I've done anything to upset you, if I've made a mistake, then I am begging you to forgive me because you are right and I am wrong. But if I haven't done anything, I've been sitting here longing to have someone become my brother in this fraternal bond. Rasulullah looked at him, he said, Ya Ali, Wallahi ma dakhartuka illa li nafsi. I have not saved you except for myself. No one else can be your brother other than God's final messenger. I've kept you from me, Ya Ali. Then he said to him, again in Musnad Ahmad, he said to him, أنت مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي وأنت وارث علمي. Ya Ali, you are the one to whom I will inherit my knowledge. The sad thing is we read these statements and we don't really ponder, we don't think what the Prophet is saying. Partly because we don't care enough, partly because so many other fabricated traditions were manufactured en masse by Muawiyah and his cronies that it simply diluted the real authentic virtues of the family of Rasulullah. So it's important that we pray in these nights, and especially tonight, for this final vicegerent of Rasulullah, the promised one, the 12th one. Because when you pray for him, wouldn't he also pray for you? If somebody said to me that I'm praying for you, my natural instinctive response is what? As I will for you. Right? That's the courteous thing to do. That's the kind thing to do. Now imagine, you pray for him. He doesn't pray for you? Of course he does. Somebody came to Imam al-Rida, alayhi alafu at-tahiyyati was-salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He said to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, ud'u li. Oh, son of the messenger of God, pray for me. So the Imam asked him a question. He said to him, don't you think I pray for you? So he said, I paused for a second to think about what the Imam just asked me. So I said to myself that I am one of his followers. He is my leader. So surely he cares enough about me to pray for me. So he turns around to the Imam and he says to him, yes, I think you do pray for me. The Imam said, of course I do. I pray for you every day. Then the Imam gave him a test. He said, you have in my heart the position that I have in your heart. If you truly follow me, if you truly care for me, if you truly love me, if you honor me, then you should know that I care for you and love you and honor you even more so. Which is why Imam al-Rida is quoted as saying, "Man zarani fi ghurbati wa ala bu'di dari." May Allah grant us His visitation. Whoever comes to visit me in my loneliness, in that strange land, all the ahlebait, they always felt connected to none other than Madinat al-Rasul. And so whenever they left Medina, they felt like strangers. بِأَبِي أَنْتَ وَأُمِّي يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. What did they do to you? That Hussain ibn Fatima, ibn Rasulullah, would have to be displaced and be turned into a refugee from the land of Rasulullah, from the city that was associated with his grandfather. So the Imam says that whoever comes to visit me, our eighth Imam, زُرْتُهُ فِي ثَلَاثِ مَوَاطِن. I will visit him in 3 places. Imagine like you're traveling to a country, a very strange land, a place you've never been to, but you happen to have a powerful friend, someone who lives there, someone who knows the local culture, knows the language. He also happens to be, let's say, a minister or someone who's high profile and is quite powerful. Now imagine that person tells you, listen, come and I'll look after you. I'll come and meet you at the airport. I'll pick you up myself. How special is that? Imam al-Rida says, whoever visits me, ala bu'di dari wa ghurbati, zurtuhu fi thalath mawatin. I will visit him in these 3 stations, which are by far the most difficult of all. He said, number 1, when the books containing our actions and our deeds, tatatayaru yaminan wa shimala. When on Judgment Day they distribute the report cards, people are terrified. People don't know what their fate is going to be, what their report cards will contain. I will meet you there. I will come and visit you the way you visited me. Then the Imam says, وَعِنْدَ الصِّرَاطِ وَعِنْدَ الْمِيزَانِ. I will be there when your actions are being placed on the scales to know whether you have more good deeds or more sins. I will be there to help you, to look out for you. And finally, on the sirat that connects the valley or the desert where people gather to face their judgment and their reckoning, and paradise. And underneath, you have the fires of hell. The Imam says, I will be there for you. I will be there asking my grandfather Rasulullah to intercede for you. So, if the Imam prays for you and comes to help you and intercedes for you in these 3 critical places just because you visited his shrine, don't you think that when you pray for your living Imam that he will also reciprocate and then some? So, this is why we're told by the Imam himself in his letter, فَأَكْثِرُ الدُّعَاءَ بِتَعْجِيلِ الْفَرَجِ فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ فَرَجَكُمْ. So pray for relief to come, for in doing so, you will receive your own relief. Pray for divine intervention. Pray for this pain and misery to come to an end. Seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Beseech Him, plead with Him, and your relief will come even before those events transpire. Meaning that by simply praying for the Imam, your life will become easier. That's how it works. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will solve whatever problems you're going through because you're turning to Him, because you're praying to Allah for relief to come. That's why it's critical, brothers and sisters, that we pray. Now, we're dealing with someone who, even if we neglect him, even if we fail to pray for him, even if we fail to remember him, he never fails to do so. He says to us, Shaykh al-Mufid in his letter, and he wrote multiple letters, but in this particular one, he says, فَإِنَّا لَسْنَا نَاسِينَ لِذِكْرِكُمْ وَلَا مُهْمِلِينَ لِمُرَاعَاتِكُمْ وَلَوْلَا ذَلِكَ لَأَخَذَتْكُمُ اللَّأْوَاءُ وَاصْطَلَمَكُمُ الْأَعْدَاءُ. He said, you should know that we never forget about you. We always pray for you. We always look after you. And had it not been for that, you would have been uprooted by your enemies. You would have been exterminated by your foes. Had it not been for His attention, for His prayers. So inshallah, tonight is the night to do that. Muharram is a season of transformation. It's a time where we make big decisions. It's a time where we anchor our boats to that of Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. Al-Hussain, as the Holy Prophet said, Al-Hussainu safinatu najat, misbahu hudan wa safinatu najat. This is the time where these habits, inshallah, are developed and refined so that we can maximize the benefits and we could seek salvation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We said last night that the ultimate aim and objective in this life of confusion, among all of these misconceptions, this confusing labyrinth that we find ourselves in the midst of, in such a world where everybody has opened a shop and they're selling their products in the form of ideas and thoughts and means with which they claim they're selling snake oil at the end of the day. Everybody's claiming that I am the truth, I have the truth, you should follow me. And yet, we know for a fact that the truth cannot be self-contradictory. Statements that contradict each other are mutually exclusive, right? Either Jesus is God or He is not God. It can't be both. This extreme form of philosophical perennialism, or what's called with different names, pluralism or whatever you'd like to call it, this is unsustainable. It's illogical. It's self-contradictory. So you have all of these different claims, each one saying something. وَكُلٌّ يَدَّعِي وَصْلًا بِلَيْلَى وَلَيْلَى لَا تُقِرُّ لَهُمْ. In this world, you need to be with who? With the ones that Rasulullah said you should be with them. إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمُ Say it louder. إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمُ الثَّقَلَيْنِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَعِتْرَةِ أَهْلَ بَيْتِي ما إن تمسكتم بهما لن تضلوا بعدي أبدا وقد نبأني اللطيف الخبير أنهما لن يفترقا. Or according to other versions of the hadith, لن يتفرقا حتى يرد علي الحوض. And it makes a big difference. But we'll leave that for another time. The Holy Prophet said, you wish to avoid deviation? After me there is going to be discord, there's going to be fitna, there's going to be schisms, there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be death, carnage, and destruction. Rasulullah knew all these things. So He's giving us a solution. He's giving us the medicine to treat this disease. He says, I'm leaving with you the Holy Quran, حَبْلٌ مَمْدُودٌ مَا بَيْنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and my progeny and my kindred and my family. Because if you take the Quran all by itself, the Quran is a malleable text. The Quran is flexible. You can bend it, you can twist it, you can misinterpret it whichever way you want. That's why ISIS uses the Quran, cites the Quran to justify their atrocities. And the Sufis do it, and the Salafis do it, and everybody has some kind of claim to the Quran. I remember my father says that back in the 1960s in Iraq, the Communist Party in Iraq would hold banners citing verses of the Quran. So the communists who didn't believe in God, they also cite verses of the Quran. The Khawarij used to cite verses of the Quran. The Mariqeen used to cite verses of the Quran. Literally everyone is going to use verses of the Quran to justify their actions. So the Quran alone is not enough. The Quran needs an arbiter. It needs a standard by which it could be measured. You need some kind of way to decode the language of the Quran. So what did the Prophet leave us with? The ahlebait. Itrati ahlebait. Muwatta Malik says, wa sunnati. Literally every other musnad and sahih says itrati. But the one who reports the traditions from Malik ibn Anas, in his Muwatta, قال راوي الموطأ, the Prophet said, I'm leaving you with the Quran and my tradition. Well, how's that turning out? The Quran and the Prophet's Sunnah, has it solved our problems? The chaos that we see in the world today, in the Muslim world, how has that been addressed by the fact that you have the Quran and the so-called Sunnah of the Prophet? The Sunnah of the Prophet is contradictory. The Sunnah of the Prophet is all over the place. Ultimately, you have a means with which you get to the Sunnah of the Prophet. You don't have a direct access to Rasulullah now, do you? So you have to go through the companions. And don't even get me started on the companions and their inconsistencies and their contradictions and their killing of each other. I mean, if that's not a contradiction, I don't know what is. So how do you verify the Sunnah of the Prophet? The Quran doesn't need verification, but the Quran needs interpretation. So whichever way you turn, you've reached a dead end. There's no way this would solve our problems. It creates more problems than it solves. You need to go back to the family of Rasulullah, the ones in whose house the Quran was revealed. The family of the Prophet, the ones who were raised by the Messenger of God, the ones he pointed to, the ones he brought together and recited the verse, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. 6 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. 6 or 7 linguistic tools to add emphasis in this verse. I don't want to get into it right now. All this emphasis about the purity of the Ahlul Bayt can only mean one thing, that they're infallible, that they're inerrant. In fact, even if we didn't have this verse, Hadith al-Thaqalain proves without question the infallibility of the Ahlul Bayt. How? When Rasulullah associates these two together and says that they will never separate, if the Quran is infallible, which of course it is, then so are the ones linked to it and will never separate from it. If they committed a single minor sin, then they would separate from the Quran, wouldn't they? The Prophet says they will never separate until they come back to me by the pond on the day of judgment. That hadith in itself is proof of the infallibility of the family of Rasulullah. So then, of course, you have people who come and tell you, as we said last night, if Hussein knew that these Kufans would betray him, why would they do that? And so the natural inclination here is to deny the fact that he was aware of what would happen. The idea here is to take away the most obvious of facts and somehow portray Imam al-Hussein as someone who was at best confused, wasn't sure what would happen. He had the best of intentions. As the grand mufti of the vile Saudi regime said on television, Al-Hussein ghurrira bih. He was deceived. He was taken, astaghfirullah, I don't want to use his words. Hussein didn't really quite compute what was happening, didn't know that this would end in disaster the way it did. They fooled him, right? And so that's how it's presented. But then, as I said, leave aside the religious arguments, right? Even if you don't believe in their infallibility, in the fact that they are heirs to the Prophet, and the fact that they are inheritors to the Prophet's knowledge, the fact that the Prophet himself spoke about the tragedy of Karbala, the fact that it was well known, literally everyone knew it. Leave all that aside. Anyone with a modicum of geopolitical awareness knew that this was not going to end in anything other than the martyrdom of Hussein and his family. Everybody knew that. But what they fail to appreciate or understand or accept is that Hussein is not here to become king no matter the cost. That's not the idea. If it was about becoming king and deposing the filthy animal that Yazid was, when, at the very least, when At-Tarimmah, who was one of the companions of Imam al-Hassan and the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, encountered Imam al-Hussein along the way, he said to him, "Come to Yemen, ya Aba Abdullah. Why are you going to Kufa knowing the Kufan society and how they think? Come with me to Yemen. I have a tribe of 30,000 people. I guarantee they will all join you and fight for your cause." At the very least, when you have an offer you can't refuse like that, you would accept it. If the objective was what? To depose this tyrant and to replace him. But that's not the idea. Imam al-Hussein's mission is guidance. Political authority, if accessible, if available, and if it's a means to provide guidance, then why not? But that is a means to an end. The end here is guidance. Imam al-Hussein wants to expose the vile character of Yazid and Bani Umayyah. Imam al-Hussein wants to say that this entire system is corrupt to the very core. Imam al-Hussein wants to remind us, and again, all it needs is just a little reflection. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. Just think about it for a moment. Who paved the way for Yazid to ascend the pulpit of Rasulullah? Who paved the way for a filthy drunkard like Yazid? Yazid, sharibul khumur, rakibul fujur, qatilun nafs al-muhtarama. Imam al-Hussein describes him like this. Everybody knows who Yazid was. The Imam said, this kind of man, the guy with pet monkeys sitting on the pulpit of Rasulullah, who made that possible for him? What were the events that led up to that? Which is why we say, Allahumma la'an awwala zalimin zalama haqqa Muhammadi wa ali Muhammad wa akhira tabi'an lahu ala dhalik. Whoever paved the way has to be held to account. Whoever created an environment that's conducive for someone like Yazid to sit on the throne has to be held to account, because they knew exactly what they were doing. The aberration, the deviation began a long time ago. Which is why Lady Zainab, as part of her eulogy of her brother whose body was left on the plains of Karbala, mutilated and battered. One of the statements she makes is Assalamu ala qatil al-ithnain, or the one who was killed on Monday. Which doesn't make sense because Imam Hussain was killed on a Friday. Ashura, by and large, most accounts say that it happened on a Friday. What is Zainab trying to tell us here? No. Yes, you were martyred on Friday, but you were truly killed on Monday. The day Rasulullah was killed. The day Rasulullah left this world. Because that's when the deviation began. That's when the oppression was kick-started. And then you have people who come and tell you, oh, we have to. The problem with the Kufans was this, my dear brothers and sisters. Listen carefully. Last night I talked about the Kufans and the parallels between the people of Kufa and the problems that we're facing in this very moment. Because there are so many similarities. There's so much common ground. It's terrifying how similar today's society is in comparison to the society of the Kufans at the time. I swear to God, it's terrifying. It sends shivers down my spine. Because I look and I see all the hallmarks of what created the massacre of Ashura. One of which, for example, was the fact that the Kufans didn't want to rock the boat. And I alluded to this last night, the fact that they were happy where they were. They were doing just fine. They didn't want to get into some kind of conflict that would involve any form of fighting or, even if it took more than just having to go out and welcome Imam Hussain, they couldn't be bothered with all that. They wanted wellness, they wanted comfort, they wanted convenience. One of the ways with which Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, alayhi la'a'inullah ibn Marjana, was able to tip the balance, tip the scales in his favor, was tapping into this issue. So let me paint a picture for you here, right? When Ubaydullah was summoned by Yazid, Yazid realized that Kufa was going to turn. So, because he had learned that letters had been sent inviting Imam Hussain to come and whatnot. So Yazid sent after Ubaydullah, his governor in Basra. He said to him, listen, come to Kufa as soon as you possibly can, because we need to bring things under control. When Ubaydullah came, he was wearing a mask so that no one would recognize him. He was too afraid to come in a hostile environment, or at least he perceived it to be a hostile environment. So he was all covered up, he was wearing a mask, he came with a handful of people. Whoever saw him assumed that he was Imam al-Hussain. In fact, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad's fears were intensified by the fact that whoever saw him would say, Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulullah. He realized that everybody was anticipating Imam al-Hussain to come. But what he did was, he didn't say a thing, he simply went straight to the governor's mansion, to the government house, and he snuck in. At first, the former governor wouldn't want to let him in. He said to him, Ya Hussein. Again, the former governor thought that Ubaydullah was Imam al-Hussain. He said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, please don't make me do anything. Please don't make me kill you. I don't want to have to kill you. So Ubaydullah removed his mask. He's like, listen, it's me. Let me in before somebody kills me. So he snuck in with a bunch of people, and then he sealed the gates of the governor's mansion because news quickly spread that this was in fact not Imam al-Hussain but Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and now he felt physically threatened. When Muslim ibn Aqil, and inshallah we'll talk about him in a subsequent night, because his mission was one of the most important ones in the entire saga of Imam al-Hussain. His role was incredibly instrumental. Salamullahi alayhi. When Muslim ibn Aqil, they had decided on a code word, that once this code word was said, everyone in Kufa would assemble and they would be ready to fight. When Muslim ibn Aqil uttered the code word, Ya Mansuro Amit, this was the code word. when he said it early morning after Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad had gone into the governor's mansion, they say thousands of Kufans came out wielding their swords. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. So, how do you go from that to what happened to Muslim ibn Aqil only a few days after? Do you know what happened? One of the things that Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad did was that he sent some of his people, some of his troops, soldiers, to get the word out that there's going to be a war. And if anyone is found on the wrong side of this war, meaning if anyone supports Muslim and supports Imam Hussain, the first thing we will do is that we will cut off their monthly stipends. So the Muslim government had a system by which they would pay allowances, some kind of payment that they would give. He said, we will cut that off. Most of the people of Kufa backed away because of that threat. What does that tell you about these people? They had given their pledges, their allegiance. They had promised Imam al-Hussein, إِنَّمَا تَقْدِمُ عَلَى جُنْدٍ مُجَنَّدَ, we are all soldiers for you. And yet all of a sudden, mothers started coming to their sons saying, son, listen, they're going to stop paying us this monthly allowance. Please, let's go home. We don't want any trouble. Over a little petty cash. Again, compare that to how most people lead their lives. The central tenet of most decisions that people make is money. It's how much money we can make, how much of an income do I expect when it comes to choosing their careers, when it comes to choosing where to study, when it comes to choosing where to live, when it comes to choosing who to marry, when it comes to choosing. All these things, they revolve around what? Money. And so if our income is disturbed in any way, then you can expect a lot of defections. Imam al-Hussein himself said on the day of Ashura, he said, most people are not bothered by religion. الدين لاعق على ألسنتهم. Religion is but saliva in their mouths. They use this saliva to wet the dry inner linings of their mouths, and as soon as they want nothing to do with it, they'll spit it out. To most people, religion is just that. It's a means of lubricating their lives. It's a means of making their lives more comfortable. وَإِذَا مُحِّصُوا بِالْبَلَاءِ قَلَّ الدَّيَّانُونَ. And yet, when the push comes to the shove, when they're being tested, you will find that most people do not hold on to religious values. You'll find that most people couldn't be bothered. They'll quickly sneak out, like many of the people who abandoned Imam al-Hussein on the way to Karbala. This is the reality, brothers and sisters. So that's one of the problems of the Kufans. I'll try and wrap up quickly. The other problem that they had, listen carefully to this, was the fact that they were not theologically stable. What does that mean? It means that, you know how sometimes people try to keep their options open, right? They're like, listen, we love everybody. Everybody's good. Everybody's cool. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not cause any problems. But see, again, as I said earlier, there are some serious inconsistencies. You can't just love everybody. This whole idea about adalat al-sahaba, that all of the companions are somehow good and immune from criticism, and that they all will end up in paradise. How do you reconcile that with the fact that they murdered each other? with the fact that they caused so much carnage and destruction against each other? How do you reconcile that with the Battle of Jamal, 30,000 dead? How do you reconcile that with the Battle of Siffin that lasted 4 months until some were saying, and they made a statement, انقرض العرب, that the Arabs are going to become extinct. That's how many people have died. How do you reconcile that with the fact that the third Khalifa exiles Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, this great companion of Rasulullah, about whom the Prophet said that the heavens has not cast its shadow on anyone more truthful than Abu Dharr. And he gets exiled, and he dies of hunger and thirst on the way. How do you reconcile all that? Yes, I know these are inconvenient truths. I know the easy thing to do is to simply shut our minds off of all of this and say, oh, no, they were all good. And if anyone dares criticize, then they are Rafidis, they're kuffar. So, the problem that the Kufans had was that they like to keep their options open. Someone came to our sixth Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam. And he said to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I'm one of those people who's all about peace and love and harmony. So I love everybody. I love you, I really do. Remember when we said that it's a two-part process. أسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. God, the one who gave me your love and who also sustained me with enmity towards your foes, I ask him to make me with you in this world and the next. That's how you can achieve that oneness, that togetherness with those who are truthful. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. If you're going to be with the truthful ones, then you have to reject the who? Those who are not truthful, those who are liars, those who are cheaters, those who are sinners. You stick with the truthful ones, right? That togetherness can only be achieved if you maintain this two-part process. Love for them, enmity towards their enemies. It's in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Ayatul Kursi, He says, you have to begin by yakfuruna bit-taghut, then yu'minuna billah. You have to reject the tyrants and love and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, the problem with the Kufans was that they kept their options open. This guy says to Imam al-Sadiq, he says to him, I love you, but I also love your enemies. He didn't say it in as many words. He said, I love so-and-so. Imam al-Sadiq said to him, here's the problem. God says in the Quran, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not placed two hearts inside of a man. فَيُحِبُّ بِهَذَا وَيُبْغِضُ بِهَذَا. You can't both love us and love our enemies. Then the Imam said to him, أَمَّا الْآنْ فَأَنْتَ أَحْوَلْ. It's like someone whose eyes are not aligned, someone who's cross-eyed. A person who suffers from this condition thinks that they're seeing the truth, but they might turn the other way because they're not seeing properly. Their eyes are misaligned. The Imam said to him, your inner eye is misaligned. You have to choose. It's either the path of Allah, the Prophet, the ahlebait. Again, these are basic things. We're not coming up with any of this from our back pockets. The Prophet said, follow my family. Okay, so if you follow the family, it's obvious what you need to do. That's one example. The other example is Imam al-Baqir was sitting down along with his brother Zayd ibn Ali. They were brothers. Zayd had many followers because remember, Zayd was Someone, and again, there's a whole discussion about this, but the general understanding among the scholars is that while Imam al-Baqir did not engage in any kind of quote-unquote political activity against the ruling Ummayyad regime, right? While that was the case, Zayd was in close coordination with Imam al-Baqir. So his uprising, his revolution, had the consent of Imam al-Baqir, the consent of the ahlebait. So he's sitting with Imam al-Baqir, his own brother, in this gathering. A group of people come who pledged allegiance to Zayd and his mission. They came and they said to him, Inna nuwali aliyan wal Hasan wal Hussain. We love and follow Ali, Hassan and Hussein. Wa nabra'u min a'da'ihim. Not only that, but we also disassociate from their enemies. So he said to him, good. That's how it's supposed to be. Then they said, but we also love so and so, and we disassociate from their enemies. Zayd immediately got up and was furious. He said to them, do you know who you are turning into an enemy in the process? Fatimatu Zahra. He said, when you align yourself with the enemies of Fatima, what do you expect to be? What do you expect will happen to you? Batartum amrana batarakum Allah. The word butri or batri came from this expression. He says that you have severed our affair. You have denied our rights by aligning yourself with the one who threatened to burn down the house of Fatima to Zahra. I mean, that's the least that's been established. In our own sources, we have a lot more details. But history has been redacted. History has been subjected to heavy editing. And yet we have this as an established fact that they said we'll burn down the house over your head and the head of your children, Hassan and Hussein. So if you associate with the enemies who made these threats, then you are alienating Fatima to Zahra. And we all know who Fatima is. Fatima to bad'atun minni. Man adaha faqad adani. And so he said to them, that's not acceptable. You are now a butri or batri. You have to decide which front you're going to stand in, which camp you're going to be in. And that is one of the miracles of Ashura. One of the most incredible achievements. All it takes is a little pondering, a little retrospection. Connect the dots. It's not that hard. Figure out where Imam al-Hussain was, what he represented, and where the enemies were, what they represented, and whose camp they were in. The problem with the Kufans was that they like to keep their options open. And so the question about whether or not Imam al-Hussain knew what was going to happen is a redundant and futile question. Of course he knew. He was there to guide people. Have we not read Surah Inna Anzalnah? تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. The Quran says that these angels descend every night of destiny. It's a continuous process. It's a perpetual descent. تنزل means تتنزل. Not just in the lifetime of the Prophet, but every Qadr night. The angels descend with what? With every affair. Meaning, with God's knowledge, God's decree, what's going to happen for the next year. Who do they descend on? Who? Some child was saying a while back that, oh, the Mahdi is not a person. The Mahdi is the progression of humanity. Humans will advance and they'll learn and they'll use experiments and whatnot, and they'll arrive at a state where they have perfection in this world. And then he mentioned the United Nations as an example. He said, you know, the United Nations, this institution will continue to refine itself and improve and whatnot. It'll get to the point where humans are all happy and they've achieved the pinnacle of science and social progress and whatnot. So when the angels descend with God's decree for the next year, do they descend on the UN Secretary General? Who do they descend on? Other than the family of Rasulullah, his appointed heirs. So when the angels descend on Imam Hussain and give him details of God's decree for the next year, he doesn't know what's going to happen to him. The people who deny ilm al-ghayb, and they have no recourse other than to deny the whole thing, by the way. So they'll deny ilm al-ghayb from the imams of the ahlebait, but they have to deny that the Prophet possessed any ilm al-ghayb, right? These imposters that we see them growing like mushroom here and there. Ilm al-ghayb, the Quran says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, alimul ghayb. God is the only one who has knowledge of the unseen. And yet in the very same Quran, as I said last night, read the Quran, forget the hadith. Alimul ghayb, la yudhiru ala ghaybihi ahadan. He is the possessor of knowledge of the unseen, and he does not expose that knowledge to anyone illa man irtada min rasul, except to those messengers that he selects and he is pleased with. So if you are willing to acknowledge, despite your incredible hubris and arrogance, that Rasulullah did have knowledge of the unseen by means of God granting him that knowledge, that's when their whole entire house of cards comes crumbling down. Listen to this verse in the Quran. ذَلِكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهِ إِلَيْكَ. That is among the knowledge of the unseen that we reveal to you. So yes, God possesses knowledge of the unseen. That's knowledge that is God's. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He reveals it to His messengers. He reveals it to His prophets. He even reveals it to people who are neither messengers or prophets, like وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ. The mother of Musa, she's a woman, she's not a prophet, she's not a messenger. She's just an average woman who happens to be the mother of this prophet. God gives her details about what's going to happen. God says, put him in a box, throw him in the river, he's going to be a prophet, he'll be okay. I mean, all these details, it's not a premonition, it's not some dream that she saw. This is revelation from Allah. But no, Hussein didn't know what was going to happen. The Imams of the ahlebait have no idea what's going to happen because ilm al-ghayb, it belongs to God. Read the Quran. Pathetic imbeciles trying to take imamah away from us. Imamah, which is at the core of our faith. Imamah is what connects tawheed and nubuwwah and ma'ad. Without imamah, do you know what happens? Islam without imamah is Yazid. Islam without imamah is Karbala and the massacre of Ashura. Islam without imamah is Saqifa. The whole intent of Saqifa was to attack Ghadir, was to take away our faith in imamah. And that's exactly what these people are trying to do. Trying to tarnish and undermine our faith, our belief in this Quranic concept. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet, وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الرَّسُولُ بَلِّغْ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Deliver to them what has been revealed to you by your Lord. وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَتَهُ. And if you fail to do so, then the entire message of God is invalidated. It is not acceptable unless you deliver this vital component, this last piece of the puzzle, the one thing that can keep everything together. And allow this religion to flourish, and allow this religion to be maintained the way it should be. So, I'll leave you with this. I do apologize. Allahumma salli ala. One of the people who played a pivotal role on the plains of Karbala in defense of imamah, in defense of the truth, in defense of the household of purity and infallibility, despite not even being there, was Baneen. She wasn't even there, was she? And yet she was, because she was represented by her 4 sons. This lioness had given birth to 3 cubs, one greater than the other. She had nursed them with the love of the ahlebait in such a manner that they say Abbas never addressed his own brother Hussein as my brother. He never said Akhi. He always said Sayyidi, my master. Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. His honoring of his brother Hussein, his devotion to him, his commitment to him. He was the most loyal soldier of Abu Abdullah. How did that come about other than the incredible upbringing of his mother Baneen? You know how you hear that somebody's won the Nobel Prize, or somebody's made it to the top of their industry, or someone's, being recognized as a prodigy or something like that. Usually one of the first things people ask about is, which university did this person graduate from? Where did he come from? What's his upbringing? And in this case, the university that gave the world these unique gems was Baneen, بأبي هي وأمي. They say that when Baneen married the commander of the faithful, we all know that her name was Fatimatul Kilabiyya. Her name is Fatima. And yet, when she came to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, out of concern and respect for the children of Fatimatul Zahra, she said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have a request that you don't call me by my first name. Call me instead Baneen. I know what my mission is. My mission in this life is to bring children who would be slaves and servants of the children of Fatima. Don't call me Fatima. I don't want the children of Fatima to Zahra to remember their mother every time they hear my name. And so she then gives birth to these cubs, and she feeds them the love of the Ahlul Bayt, the devotion to the Ahlul Bayt, the fact that you are nothing but at the beck and call of the children of Ali and Fatima. Her aim and objective in life was always that no matter what happens, her children would always anchor their boat to the children of Fatima, to always look after them if they ever needed anything. God forbid Zainab or Hussein ever became thirsty. Abul Fadl al-Abbas would always be the first one to jump. He'd be the first one trying to fetch water. Saqi utasha Karbala. Abul Fadl al-Abbas was brought into this world in order to die for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Amir al-Mu'mineen himself said, I want to marry a woman أولدتها الفحولة من العرب. I want a woman whose lineage is that of bravery and chivalry. I want someone who's going to give me children who will look after my son when he is left all alone and abandoned on the day of Ashura, saying, ألا هل من ناصر ينصرنا لوجه الله ألا هل من ذاب يذب عن حرم رسول الله. I want them for that day when people abandon my son. There was a moment when the women and children looked at the enemy camp, and they would see that the enemy camp is increasing by the thousands.
and yet their own camp was losing supporters and people who had accompanied Abu Abdullah from Mecca. Imagine what would happen to the hearts of the children. As-Sayyid al-Muqarram says in his maqtal, there is this statement which is like a dagger through my heart. He says that when Abu Abdullah al-Hussain would go out of his tent on the way to Karbala, every time they stood to rest, when Hussein came out, he was always surrounded بِصِبْيَانِ, little children who were holding on to him. Imagine Abdullah ibn al-Hasan holding the robe of Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. Imagine Sakina al-Ruqayya. These little children, he says in fact that when Ubaydullah ibn al-Hurr al-Ju'fi was approached by Imam al-Hussain, he himself reports this. He says, I noticed Hussein was surrounded by all of these children. Maybe one of the reasons is that these children were afraid, they were terrified, they didn't know what was going to happen. Father, why are we standing here in the middle of the desert? Weren't we supposed to go to Kufa? Father, why are these soldiers surrounding us? Why is their number increasing by the minute? But perhaps the reason wasn't that they were afraid of what would happen to them, but because they didn't want to lose their father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. They didn't want to have Imam al-Hussain go and not come back. Allahu Akbar. What a state of mind. So al-Baneen prepared her children for that day, which is why when Bishr ibn Hadlam came back to Medina and he called out, Ya Ahle Yathrib, La muqama lakum biha. O people of Yathrib, get out of this city. The light of Medina has been extinguished. The master of this city is no longer here. La muqama lakum biha qutila al-Husayn fa'admu'i midraru. Hussein has been killed. When everyone gathered around him trying to know what he's talking about, that's when he told them, Hussein has been killed, but there is more. الرأس منه على القناة يدار. His body is on the plains of Karbala and his head is placed on a long spear. That's when they say al-Baneen rushed out. You know, they say when Imam al-Hussain left Medina, all of his relatives, all of the people that cared for him, they all came and asked him not to go. They all said, why are you going? The only one who didn't say a word to Abu Abdullah was al-Baneen. She didn't tell the Imam not to go, but she did speak to her son Abbas. She might have said to him, my son Abbas, this is the day I have brought you up to face. My son Abbas, you are going with Abu Abdullah. I don't want to see you come back without him. And so she came to Bishr ibn Hadlam. What are you talking about? Tell me, how is my son Hussein? She didn't ask him about Abbas. She didn't ask him about Ja'far. She didn't ask him about Muhammad. All she wants to know is how Hussein is, the son of Fatima. When he told her, they say that al-Baneen went to meet Zainab alayha salam. When Zainab came, al-Baneen saw her. Some have said that perhaps al-Baneen greeted Zainab by saying to her, my daughter Zainab, my sweetheart, tell me, did my son make me proud on the plains of Karbala? How could Hussein die while Abbas was alive? How could Abbas have his sword and let any harm reach his brother Hussein? Zainab said, Ya al-Baneen, they cut off his arms before they killed him. Baneen would say, oh Zainab, you look like you've aged 20 years. What happened to you in Karbala? You look so much older. What did you face? What did you see over there? Baby, antum wa ummi. They say that Baneen would then go to the cemetery of Baqi'. She created 4 graves for her sons. Of course, her sons were buried in Karbala, but she wanted something to go to. And she would cry to the extent that anyone passing Baqi' would cry along with her. Even Marwan the Ummayad would cry when he saw how bitterly Baneen cried. What did she say? She would recite these verses. She would say, one day I said, don't call me Fatima, call me Baneen. And today I ask you, stop calling me Baneen. لا تدعوني ويك البنين تذكريني بليوث العرين. You remind me of my 4 cubs, my 4 sons. Stop calling me the mother of the children. And then she would say, Ya Abbas, is it true that they cut off your arms? Oh my son Abbas, is it true that they hit you on the head with an iron pole? Oh Abbas, is it true what they say about the arrow? Ya Hussain.
Ya Hussain, 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 Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. लगा जब तीर असगर को सकीना रो के चिल्लाई लगा जब तीर असगर को सकीना रो के चिल्लाई नहीं इस तरह बच्चों को कोई पानी पिलाता है कहा बानों ने ये रोकर यही गम दिल को खाता है कहा बानों ने ये रोकर यही गम दिल को खाता है मैं अक्सर रात भर पहलू मैं तुझको ढूंढती असगर मैं अक्सर रात भर पहलू मैं तुझको ढूंढती असगर तेरा वो खूब भरा चेहरा नहीं आँखों से जाता है या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी 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 होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा ज़हरा जायां होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी सब मिलके ज़हरा जायां ज़हरा जायां दासरा छे जगह तो हुसैन चुने आए 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 फिर भी पूरा ना मिल सका गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा छे जगह तो हुसैन चुने आए 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 फिर भी पूरा ना मिल सका गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा शिम्र रज रज हुसैन को मारे 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 जानदा नहीं रहा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां ज़हरा जायां होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा ज़हरा जायां ज़हरा जायां होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दास अज भी बिनते हुसैन रोंदी है 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 हथ मेरे कैद तू चुड़ा गाजी ज़हरा जायां गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां ज़हरा जायां होया करबल होया करबल होया करबल दे विच जुदा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी ज़हरा जायां दासरा गाजी
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
From Karbala to Karbala, I left my heart in Karbala. These are the words, brothers. Please, loudest of your voices. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, 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 I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, 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 I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, 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 I left my heart in Karbala. Voices from Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, Karbala, Karbala. I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala. Where are your voices? To Karbala, Karbala. I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala, Bala to voices. Karbala, Karbala. Karbala, the luminous moon lighting the way, the luminous moon lighting the way, the rising sun that brightens my day. Heaven without you would be in flames. You're the heaven in Karbala. Your visitors offer you their hands. Your visitors offer you their hands. Enemies will never understand. How can the water lose to the sand? How can the dirt win in Karbala? Oh, heaven is opening, Ya Hussain. Oh, heaven is opening, Ya Hussain. Oh, angels descending, Ya Hussain. Oh, they are reciting in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala to I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala to Karbala, Karbala. Karbala, the luminous moon lighting the way, the luminous moon lighting the way, the rising sun that brightens my day. Heaven without you would be in flames. You're the heaven in Karbala. Your visitors offer you their hands. Your visitors offer you their hands. Enemies will never understand. How can the water lose to the sand? How can the dirt win in Karbala? Oh, heaven is opening, Ya Hussain. Oh, heaven is opening, Ya Hussain. Oh, angels descending, Ya Hussain. Oh, they are reciting in Karbala from. In Karbala from Karbala to Karbala, the hand of God that nurtures the young, the hand of God that nurtures the young. Speaking for Allah, you were the tongue, separating his right from the wrong. Elevated in Karbala, the ship that sails with me through the waves, and whoever boards your ship is saved, immune from the punishment from the grave. Whoever mourned you in Karbala, when will we meet again, Ya Hussain? When will we meet again, Ya Hussain? When under your dome will I breathe again? From Najaf will I walk to Karbala? From Karbala to Karbala. Karbala from Karbala, Karbala, mashallah, to the hand of God that nurtures the young, the hand of God that nurtures the young. Speaking for Allah, you were the tongue, separating his right from the wrong. Elevated in Karbala, the ship that sails with me through the waves, and whoever boards your ship is saved, immune from the punishment from the grave. Whoever mourned you in Karbala, when will we meet again, Ya Hussain? When will we meet again? When under your dome will I breathe again? From Najaf will I walk to Karbala? From Karbala, Karbala to I left my heart in Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala to Hussain, Master Hussain, Master Hussain, Master Hussain, Hussain, Master Hussain, Master Hussain, Master Hussain, Hussain. Voices! Hussain, Master. Master Hussain, Hussain. Hussain, Hussain, Master Hussain, Hussain, Hussain. How how can the hand that right do justice to you when Abbas gave his left and right for you? Brave and patient, who can compare to you? I would die to live and die there for you. So we say live like Ali and die like Hussein. So we say live like Ali and die like Hussein. Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein. Hussein, 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 how can the hand that right to justice to you when Abbas gave his left and right for you? Brave and patient, who can compare to you? I would die to live and die there for you. So we say live like Ali and die like Hussein. So we say live like Ali and die like Hussein. Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein. Brothers, Hussein. Hey, Hussein. Hussein, they ask me, why don't you forget about Hussein? They ask me, why don't you forget about Hussein? I ask them, how could you forget about Hussein? The master of the youth of paradise, the master of the youth of paradise. But for now be the master for my eyes, and cover them with the tears like you were covered with your holy blood and left uncovered. You are a medicine, you are a medicine, you are my remedy. No tragedy compares with your tragedy. We will remember you for as long as we remain. We will remember you for as long as we remain. Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein. Hey, Hussein, Master Hussein, Master Hussein. Hey, if you never heard of Imam Hussain, listen, and if you've heard of him, listen again. Let me recite how he submitted everything. For the sake of Allah, he held back nothing. He was the grandson of our holy Rasul. He was the son of Haydar and Al-Batul. He was the son of Aliul Haydara. He was martyred, he was martyred, he was martyred thirsty in Karbala. Near or far, you're always too close to me. After Ali and Hassan, you are my wali. We will remember you for as long as we remain. We will remember you for as long as we remain. Hussein, Master, Hussein, Master, Hussein, Master. Where are your voices? Hussein. Master Hussain, Hussain, Master Hussain, Master Hussain. Hussain, Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla. Voices! Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Hussain, Ya Mawla. Hussain, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla, Ya Mawla. Aziz al-Zahra, Hussain, Aziz al-Zahra. Qatil al-Abra, Aba Abdillah. أبا عبد الله أبا عبد الله أبا عبد الله أبا عبد الله حسين يا مولا حسين يا مولا حسين يا مولا يا مولا يا مولا حسين يا مولا لا يا مولا حسين يا مولا حسين يا مولا يا مولا يا مولا حسين يا مولا يا مولا حسين يا مولا يا مولا. The people blame me, the people blame me, the people blame me, but they can't tame me. I will always shed, I will always shed the tears for your head, the tears for your head. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Voices, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hey, where are you residing? Where are you residing? You live inside me, you live inside me, you live within me, you live within me, above my kidney, above my kidney. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla. Ya Mawla, Abdullah's thirsty, Abdullah's thirsty, they show no mercy. Abdullah's thirsty, they show no mercy, they show no respect, they show no respect. They pierced his soft neck, they pierced his soft neck. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla. Voices, voices, voices. Hussain ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. And as Zainab waits for her true soulmate, and as Zainab waits for her true soulmate, as she is yearning, as she is yearning, the tents are burning, the tents are burning. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, la Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla. And as Zainab waits for her true soulmate, and as Zainab waits for her true soulmate, as she is yearning, as she is yearning, the tents are burning, the tents are burning. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, hey Hussain ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla. One more time. Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, la Hussain ya Mawla, ya Mawla, ya Mawla, Hussain ya Mawla.
رب بما شفيتني حسين 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 رب بما شفيتني رب بما سقيتني رب بما نصرتني رب بما كلأتني رب بما أنتني رب بما أشقتني رب بما أشقتني حب الحسين أجنني حب الحسين أجنني حب الحسين أجنني حب الحسين أجنني حب الحسين آی حسین 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 مرده بودم زنده شدم عشق تو را بنده شدم مرده بودم زنده شدم عشق تو را بنده شدم دولت عشق آمد و من دولت پاینده شدم دولت عشق آمد و من دولت پاینده شدم بی همگان به سر شود بی همگان به سر شود بی تو به سر نمی شود بی همگان به سر شود بی تو به سر نمی شود داغ تو دارد این دلم جای دگر نمی شود یار حسین دلدار حسین یار حسین دلدار حسین یا سید الاحرار حسین یار حسین دلدار حسین یا سید الاحرار حسین 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 ابوالفضل 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 یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی شب‌های جمعه میگیرم هوا تو شب‌های جمعه میگیرم هوا تو اشک غریبی میریزم برا تو اشک غریبی میریزم برات حسین جان بیچاره اون که حرم رو ندیده بیچاره تر اون که دید کربلا تو بیچاره تر اون که دید کرد شبای جمعه چه خبر کربلا شبهای جمعه دلم غرق آهه زهرای مرزی تو قتلگاهه با ناله میگه بنیا بنیا شب جمعه که میشه مادرش میاد کربلا دور تا دور حرم میچرخه به سینه میزنه صدا میزنه بنیا قتلو و من الماء منعوی حسین حسین کربلایی نشدم خجلت از این غم دارم تا ابد در دل خود شوق محرم دارم تا ابد در دل خود شور محرم دارم. اعوذ بالله من الشیطان الرجیم. اما یجیب المضطر اذا دعاه و یکشف السوء. اما یجیب المضطر اذا دعاه و یکشف السوء. اما یجیب أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.